Well, hello once again, everyone. So today I thought I would actually just talk about something that was mentioned previously in the comments of the last video like this, and that's artistic validation. So what does this mean at its basis level? You know, you want people to appreciate what you've done. Perhaps you get something out of it, etc., etc. Of course, this goes into categories because some people, this is not enough for some. Some, they don't feel artistically validated unless, for example, they have the top movie at the box office. You know, like everybody all over the world says they're the best in whatever field they're in. Realistically, this is a mental health for musician topic. It's just not possible, obviously, for everyone in the world to be the best. You can forge your own niche and or just do whatever you would naturally do and be viewed as a singularly great artist in that way. How much technique you're going to employ, just how good you are in your comprehension and your creativity, and then how the public will react to it. There's controversy with regards to what I'm about to say, because a lot of people, there's always a ton of people on the internet. The internet is basically going to refute everything or try to debunk everything, even if it's been proven or else, As the story goes, one of the greatest composers that's ever lived, Johann Sebastian Bach. I'm just going to say Bach, okay? So the story goes that Bach's music was largely forgotten for like 80 years. Until Mendelssohn kind of like revived it and was like, check this stuff out, and other people started using it as teaching tools. But it's even said that he wasn't necessarily well liked or famous during his life, as like maybe regionally or something like that, right? But he wasn't really a known figure. That's amazing. I've heard a similar story about Mozart. I don't know if that's true. The movie Amadeus has kind of portrayed it like he was just, they just chucked him into like some grave or something, like good riddance or whatever, but apparently there's controversy there too, that maybe that's largely fabricated. Anyway, artistic validation. So, for your own mental health or mine or anyone's, I think that you can't really go at it from the perspective of, I'm going to be a great and important artist or guitarist or something, or singer or songwriter. I think what's important is to maybe step back, learn as much as you can. And then when you feel like you can't hold it back anymore, this material is just coming to you, then you start to write. Okay, and of course, leading up to this is just a lot of work and practice. Even for composers and songwriters, it's, you have to be realistic. You can't expect to write a masterpiece on your first go at it. Okay, there's a lot of stuff that you have to do. This includes, transcribing, figuring out what things are, exercises. Like in the past, as a composition student myself, one of the things that my previous teacher used to do was like, find a passage from this book, like the Bible or something, right? And then like write a piece, a vocal piece based on it. As well as just arranging different pieces, like take a standard or like a Thelonious Monk tune or something, and then like orchestrate it for big band, like that kind of thing. that's just the kind of stuff you have to do. You have to like, you know, if you're in that field, you have to go read scores and like listen to recordings and like figure out what's actually going on. Similarly, if you want to be a really great songwriter, there's a list of things that you have to do. You have to go through and learn all of these chords and how they resolve into other chords and what that progression technically is and what this type of harmony is, what that type of harmony is. You know, different instruments and how they function harmonically and how they voice chords, and so on and so forth. And then the orchestration for modern, it's similar, right, to classical arranging. And of course, a lot of people are like, I'm a songwriter. That's the kind of bullshit that the engineer and the hired musicians do. Maybe at one point that's true, but if you want to be a great artist, you need to be hands-on. You need to know how this stuff is done, why it works, and then that gives you an idea about what you can do. So, like, you're not just trying to tread over what other people have already done. You're getting in there and, you know, experimenting yourself. Of course, this comes to, you know, you're a guitarist, you're a bassist, you're a keyboardist, a horn player, you know, an instrumentalist. It could be argued that the time period we live in has never been a more bountiful time for artistic validation, because, you know, you can easily upload to social media now and have tons of people that are like, that was great, you know, that was fire, or whatever, you know. And I think that's really important. That's something that probably needed to exist. And it didn't exist before, because, you know, before this time, it was like, if you want to be artistically validated, you got to play at the local bar. And then maybe your friends or some drunk people will be like, damn, that was the best rendition of Freebird I've ever heard, you know? Or something like that, you know? And if you were really lucky and talented and worked hard, you'd make it onto cable. You know, and you get in the music industry and release a record and end up in the record store, and then oh, you're hot shit. You're important. You know, of course nowadays that still exists, and I think it should still exist, mind you. But there's also all these other avenues. So there's artists that really would, not just because of limitations of geography and class. Diaspora, is that right? Yeah, class diaspora. Not just because of that, you know, just a lot of other factors, like there wasn't the funding, the time, people didn't have the time, that, you know, like a lot of people's family, you know, get in that steel mill, you know, and do that, you know, and that would probably even be like, if you don't do it, I'm going to beat you or something, you know, like, and I'm not making light of that. I'm just, you know, a little bit of that Jackson 5 thing happening, you know, because, you know, this socioeconomically, this kind of ties into what I'm talking about. The artistic validation is tied to socioeconomics. When people are validated on a popularistic level, it's because they're speaking to the people. And that's socioeconomic based. So, you know, this song is on the radio and everyone loves it because it paints a picture of like this experience, a shared experience or a shared reality. Or it's the song that everybody thinks of when they had that bad breakup or what, you know, and it's like, there's a ton of those that, and they're decade by decade, you know, everybody can go play those songs and then instantly they got that feeling again, you know. So, and that's perfectly fine. I think on some level we need that as like human creatures. But so this is a very deep subject actually, because, and then there's the side issue is that you may get artistic validation in some stuff that you've done. And then guess what? It's not what you set out to do initially. So that's another whole issue, is like, how does a person come to grips with sometimes you don't have all the answers in advance. You don't have the detailed, perfect artistic vision, and then you carry it out perfectly, and you have the most pristine music career that's just, you've thought it all out in advance, and you're genius, you're such a deep genius or whatever. That's just not reality for probably most of the people that have ever done music, or even art or visual art or filmmaking or whatever. It's just, that's just really not reality. I think one of the things you have to keep in mind is that sometimes, as a jazz musician, it's like you kind of come to accept that improvisation is a facet of your music making. And sometimes you have to just expand that mindset out to your writing, to working with others, and other factors. You have to just find the best way to do something, make it work, and then, get it feeling, sounding good. And then hopefully, usually everybody catches on to that because it's not contrived, right? So I guess maybe what we're talking about, if we're trying to seek artistic validation, whatever it is that you do, whatever style you play in, so on and so forth, maybe what we're talking about is basically, you cannot expect to, for example, learn all of the hippest new artists' material, learn their guitar style perfectly, and then expect to go out and play this stuff, put it up on the internet, and then everybody's like, wow, I'm validating you as a very great artist, because, you are never going to be that person, like you get the 1959 Les Paul or whatever, right? And it's like suddenly, oh, I'm Jimmy Page, I'm Slash, I'm Ace Frehley, I'm, like all of the people that have ever played one. You are not Ben. Okay, I understand that it's a cool thing, different genres and different eras in music, and the sounds and the tones and all the things that go along with that. But it's been done already. So while it's cool to do that stuff, and I can appreciate it too, even newer stuff that's done in that way, you can't expect to be validated as a magnificent artist, because it's like treading water in stuff that's been done, and done to a great extent. So there's also that, it's like the realism of your expectations. If any of you have read Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, you know that at the end of the book, John, the main character in it, he's considered to be a primitive to the main society or culture in the book, which is more advanced, but, they're also kind of weird by our standards, kind of cold, drug-addled, mentally kind of, and of course they have this very structured hierarchy, social hierarchy. But at the end of that book, he is being ostracized because people are coming to see him as a primitive, like he's an animal in a zoo. So that's kind of a metaphor for people that become very become Luddites, who reject all modernity or technology, and they kind of go off to live in the woods or something. And I'm not knocking that. I mean, it's amicable that someone wants to escape from the insanity, for sure. But as an artist, as a musician, this is a social-based endeavor. So we still have to know what's going on. And it could be argued that it's largely impossible to escape the era that you're in. I mean, you can try to be singular and all of this stuff, but there again, that's an even more difficult path of artistic validation. In that kind of scenario, you're basically starting out with the idea that you're going to be obscure. Period. So I don't even recommend that. For people that are seeking validation. I think the simplest approach as a guitarist is to basically, I guess, find like 10 to 20 players that you think are just fantastic and learn as much about what it is they're doing from a technical standpoint, from a music theory standpoint, from a tonal standpoint, from a musical standpoint overall, and kind of how that fits into the social hierarchy. So, for example, certain types of players play certain types of guitars, like Fenders or whatever. They appeal to kind of like the rustic retro crowd, the blues crowd, a different kind of technical player, so on and so forth. So there's blues players, country. So there's a certain thing there that's inherent to the culture of that, what I just described. So if you're seeking validation and you're with that crowd, you probably don't want to go in there as like the most intensely liberal foreign person or something that's ever existed. They're probably not going to accept you. So you have to meet them on some kind of common ground, right? Okay, getting back to the advice. So I would say find 10 to 20 players you really like. Take in all the stuff that I all the stuff that I just described, and then kind of pick and choose where you would use elements of their playing in your own material. Okay, and now this is a period of years of development that's going to just be you trying to learn and master the guitar to whatever level you're seeking to go. That's a separate thing, okay? The other side of the equation is you're going to have to do almost the same thing, but drop the guitar player mindset and think of it just in terms of compositions, of song structures, harmony, rhythm. Listen to other players of other instruments, things like that. And then you start thinking about what it is that you like about music in general. Okay, what it is that you like about this artist or those collection artists. What is the common theme? So there's probably a commonality amongst all of that. Beyond that, it's, getting creative, trying to see what you can add, what you can change, what you can fuse together. I've said this in a lot of other videos and other comments of different things on the internet. I believe that all music is a fusion. So even classical music, it was largely viewed in different eras as national music. So it'd be like, here is the Vienna sound. Here's the sound over there. Here's the sound over there. Russian had a school of thought. The French have their way of doing things. The Spanish have their way of doing things. The English have their way. And then every little town, major cultural scene, artistic scene, they have their own way of doing things because it's based on the artists of those regions and how they establish a repertoire, and that's based on the history from the church or blah, blah, blah. So it's not like everything was created in a vacuum and it just appeared one day. It's and a lot of these things like you see in Liszt's music or other people, there's reference to what they consider to be gypsy folk music or something like that, so people that was fusion. That was like Mozart or Liszt or somebody trying to capture the essence of these minstrel bands, within a different venue. So it was kind of a fusion of things, folk with established regional cultural traditions. And the same can be said about any other thing. Jazz is not something that's singular. It's a amalgamation of all of these different things. But you can look at any long tradition of music, like in Asia or India, South America. It was and is and continues to evolve and incorporate other things. For example, a lot of traditional music that's in all those aforementioned regions fuses all the time with, tries to or does fuse with like pop music, So that's going on. That is fusion. That's not a purist thing. But then again, no music is pure. Like the whole thing, the whole idea that it's one pure thing, is ludicrous, And I'm not saying there's people online that are like, but there's kind of the you can kind of sense the mentality of a lot of different people that they're purist in this area or purist in that area. Nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying that is wrong. All music is basically an amalgamation of a lot of different things. Sorry. Anyway, back to the main point before we go. Artistic validation. I think, again, keeping in theme with the last video, it's important to basically keep your head screwed on and don't let it drive you insane. Find the validation however you can, but by and large, just kind of, I think it's important to just enjoy what you're doing. Okay, I do this all the time myself. I push myself in various ways, technically. So a lot of times I have to step back and just kind of say, why are you doing all of this? Like, you're driving yourself crazy. If this works and that works and this works, but that one thing is kind of goofily hard to do, or just isn't, it's just not flowing correctly, just forget about it. Just let it go. Use those other things instead and then move on to the next thing. Like, you're wasting time on this problem when you could just be doing something else creatively. So that's important, It's also, I think, important to not be a toxic asshole. So to just, if you don't like this new popular band, maybe they hurt your ego a little bit. Like, you're like, maybe you feel like they made it and they don't deserve it and you should make it instead, and here's the reasons why. You could even be right, but that's not going to change it. And there's no point in beating yourself up about things, because it's just, the fact of the matter is that the world is not doesn't operate fair systems all the time, does it? So you're not going to find many people, getting on board with you if you're just toxic, throwing stuff around all the time. They might, for a while, they might kind of be like, wow, this guy's aggressive, but by and large, if you're bringing misery to the table all the time, and that's pretty much all that you're going to do is misery, just all the time, you're going to be surrounded by that, and it's just going to like cave in on you and everyone around you. And that kind of psychological self-destruction, self-sabotage. So it's important to just kind of be realistic and step back and think about what you can do and what you can improve upon with what you already know. And that's pretty much it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, of course. I'll play you out with this little segment.